Hello and welcome to Podtoid. I'm CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Occams.
Occams cannot hear you.
Sounded like he was like
Nope.
300 feet away.
Yeah, are you standing in another room right now?
Okay. Full disclosure, my house fell into a giant tunnel earlier. I've been fighting mole people all morning. It's been a thing.
I hate when that happens.
Me too. How's any better on the sound?
Much better on the sound. We can actually hear you.
Good. Okay. I'm here.
Okay. And this is episode 445. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We have a good show prepared for you today. On the broadcast, we'll be talking about Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and then a little bit later in the show, we're going to be looking at the news of the Snyder Cut. Not really sure if I'm looking forward to that or not, but before we get into it, Charlotte, how was your week this past week?
All right, I guess. I don't know. I made cookies for so European Speedrunner Assembly is doing an event next weekend, and I'm helping out at that and another event. And for the social media, I made some shortbread cookies with the ESA logo design on them, and it worked out really well. And
Nice.
I was just like mentally preparing for it to not work out and thinking, oh, well, it'll be tasty even if it doesn't look very good. But it actually, like, from a distance, almost looks like a claymation version of the logo. So I can use a piping bag now. That's amazing. And I also made a really good spag ball yesterday as well. I don't know if Americans are aware of the term spag ball as a short for spaghetti bolognese, but
Nope.
it was mighty fine. Yes, it was.
Spag ball definitely sounds like a homophobic slur. I'm just saying that right now.
Yeah, let's
So
all discuss what we think spagball is.
I was thinking like in an 80s cartoon was like the weird game these monsters played.
Just a pro tip: if you're going to make vegetarian spag ball, put as much red wine in as you can. Seriously, vegetarian cooking, red wine, the best combination ever. It makes everything taste meatier than meat. Just throw an entire bottle in there. Bob's your uncle.
I'll take it one step further and say, in any situation, red wine makes it better. Working from home, watching your friend get married on Zoom, having a phone call with the parents, just have a bottle of red wine right next to you. It makes it go by much faster.
And folks, save the dishes, skip the glass. Just drink out of the bottle. It'll make you feel like a poet.
I really don't like that UB40 song.
What are you talking about? Red wine makes you feel so fine.
No, I'm not a fan.
Thing is, red wine in food makes it better, but for me, drinking red wine gives me a really bad hangover, and I get it all around my mouth. So for me, it's just a food thing. Drinking a glass of red wine, I always want to, but it always ends in disaster.
I do like red more than white.
Yeah, it's just so tasty, but so hangover inducing for me. It's just
I don't know the science behind it because I'm not that smart, but apparently it's something to do with all the sugars and the alcohol and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's a rough one, to put it mildly.
I'm with you. I'm not a red wine fan, or no, nope, screwed that up. Not a white wine fan, and that's all my parents ever get when I go home for the holidays. So I generally either have to bring my own booze or just be sober the entire time.
Do they get the boxed wine?
Sometimes.
My parents are still to this day they were the boxed wine OGs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was living in an apartment in college, and I just took a box with me. I just stole a box. I mean, they had like 10, so it didn't matter. But I wanted to see what was in it, and it's just this giant bladder. And so my roommates and I, we like hooked it up in the kitchen, and we had a little not like a spigot, but like essentially like a funnel going, so we could like take pulls off of this bladder of wine while we were cooking. And we were in college and had Christmas lights in our living room. It was
I think
fun
everyone
time.
did in college.
It's great.
Kept that shit up year round. Mood
Hell
setting.
yeah.
Charlotte, you said you did piping Are you any good at handwriting with piping?
This was my first time using an icing bag, and the first 4 cookies were a little bit wobbly, a little bit drippy, but then like I got some clean lines out. I was very pleased, but I can't do anything fancy at the moment. I'll need more practice.
You know what you should do?
What?
You should put some red wine in the icing bag. It just might make it better. I don't know.
I seriously considered, like, could I combine buttercream frosting with Nutella? But then I thought that would look like I was piping poop, so I didn't do that.
Okay, Charlotte, you know how you get around that?
What?
Is you make toilet bowl shaped cookies and then pipe the poop on. People will dig it. I don't know if they have it in overseas, but there's this like it's called a dirt cake. It's also been modified to be a cat litter box cake, and essentially it's just like Oreo crumbs and or like crumbed up chocolate cake, and it's supposed to look like shit or dirt. And it's they put worms in it, gummy worms sometimes, or they just do like icing balls that look like cat poop, and it's a very popular thing here. And I don't quite understand it, but it does taste very good.
You have to understand American cuisine in that a dirt cake is probably the least offensive thing we're putting in our bodies over here. We deep fry entire sleeves of Oreos and serve them up.
And
They're
butter.
so good.
The most fucked up cake that people do, and they're not even being ironic, I don't know, they're just fucking thick, I don't know, is when someone's pregnant and people give them a cake shaped like a newborn baby.
I love that. And they always just cut the head off.
That's just fucked up. Like, it's
I
so
love
weird.
it.
But that's what I mean. Like Occam's you'd do that, and that'd be kind of like, oh, it's Occam's. It's like an Occam's joke. But these people aren't. That's not what they're going for. Like they think they're like, oh, isn't this delightful? You're having a baby, so here's a cake shaped like a baby. Like they're playing it straight, if you know what I mean.
It's just the whole idea of a gender reveal anything is delightfully sad to me. And I sound like such an asshole, but it's just you read those stories of like somebody, like a house burns down because of the gender reveal, like when they like shot the shotgun out what's supposed to have the confetti, it like ignited something that then burned down the house, or someone is injured from shrapnel at a gender reveal party, which I believe is an actual thing that happened. It just
People have been killed at gender reveal parties.
I tell you, it's just y'all just have congrats. You didn't use a condom. Have the baby. No one cares.
That's a good jumping off point to our top story of the show. Before we get talking about games, I just wanted to bring this to you guys from Europe. As we are all well aware, most of the world has been under some sort of lockdown for a few weeks now, and parts of Europe are taking it a lot more seriously than we are here in the States. But Germany is one such country that really had strict lockdowns all across the country, and it has led to some interesting situations, like for a orchestra from Bolivia that flew into Germany for a music fest. And unfortunately, once they arrived in the country, it went into lockdown. And the orchestra was stranded at some place called Rheinsberg Palace. Charlotte, are you familiar with Rheinsberg Palace?
This is Berlin, right?
All I know is Germany. I didn't get an exact city on it.
Okay, no, I'm not familiar.
Okay. Well, it's an entire Bolivian orchestra who has been stuck there for about, I think it said 4 weeks now. Can't go anywhere. Also, the castle is haunted. It is haunted by the ghost of Frederick the Great, which apparently everyone is getting along with. They're just fine the fact that they're stuck in a haunted castle. What is a little bit harder for them to wrap their heads around are the 23 packs of wolves that are surrounding the castle and its grounds, making going outside a bit of a hazardous ordeal for them.
Sorry, wait, a pack of 23 wolves or 23 packs of wolves?
23 packs of wolves.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is Saxony. This is standard for Saxony. Saxony's a bit weird.
Jesus.
This is a Dungeons and Dragons module, is what
I know.
This is.
This is a Blumhouse movie in the making.
Oh god, it really is.
Stuck in a haunted castle, surrounded by wolves. Oh man, that's a Hammer film right there. So Germany has been now allowing flights in and out of the country, but unfortunately they're still stuck because Bolivia is not. So they don't know when they're going to be able to go home. Looks like they're all in good spirits, and by good spirits I mean the dead spirits that are surrounding them in this castle. along with 23 packs of wolves. I think I might prefer that to my apartment, though, because at least you still have a castle.
Yeah, you could just sit up on the parapets and just like hang out. This is an orchestra, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you just bring out your violin, your cello, get that oboe player some love finally, and just fucking sit out there and play your music while the wolves all just do whatever 23 packs of wolves do when they're not hunting people, because that's what you do with 23 packs of wolves.
Is this Rheinsberg with an H or without an H? Because apparently there's two. Okay, no, this is in near Berlin, actually. This is not in Saxony, but also this is not my part of Germany, and therefore it is the weird part of Germany. So, yeah, I can see that. There's some strange, on the more monotonous side of things, they have red squirrels here, and that is always sort of fascinating for me to see red squirrels, because I remember red squirrels a little bit from when I was a kid, but they practically died out in the UK by the time I was about 10. So there's always something magical in Germany, and bears and like wolves and stuff is an occasional thing. So yeah.
And what is a red squirrel? Is that like a communist squirrel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
That's my
what's
joke
the
for the
means
day.
of production.
23 packs of red squirrels.
All right,
Children of the Night, what music they make. Dracula, Bram Stoker, 1897.
Yes.
Aston College. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good book. I have that on my shelf right next to my copy of Frankenstein that I have yet to open. I don't know why. I should probably get around to reading it.
It's okay.
There's a good bit at the beginning of Dracula where I think it's Renfield is thinking, or Jonathan Harker's thinking, I might leave the castle. And Dracula like opens the door, and there's like loads of like wolves that are described as having blood dripping from their fangs and glowing eyes, just walking around the castle. And Dracula's just like, yeah, you're free to go. See ya. And Harker's just like, you prick. I don't think he says that, but
he probably thinks it.
Yeah.
Or whatever the 1823 equivalent of prick is.
Probably still prick.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, let's go ahead and get talking about games. And Charlotte, we're going to start with you because you have the most interesting title this week. Tell us about Mafia 2 Definitive Edition.
So this is, I've gotten up to about chapter 7, I think, and it's a pretty decent sort of, gang style game. I don't know how to describe it. It's got a style to it that you recognize from PS3 games, and it's a little bit GTA, but not quite. So you're playing as Vito Scaletti, who has just come back from World War II as an Italian migrant. He went out to Italy to help against the Axis, and he's come back, made an excuse that he's injured, and now he's back in the Mafia. And he's doing what he does. At first, he's trying to pay off his sister's debts, then he just gets sucked in and he becomes part of the life. So that's basically the story. There's not a huge amount to it, to be honest, but it's fine. It's atmospheric enough that it doesn't really need to have a super deep story. I guess I'm a little bit disappointed that there's not many side quests, because I feel like games of that era, like the GTA 4 side stories, had side missions, I'm pretty sure. I haven't played a huge amount of old GTA. Well, hang on. I haven't played much GTA at all. So, but I gather that they have side mission stuff. And in Mafia 2 so far, there's just none of that at all. It's fairly linear, but that's okay. I guess what's to note is that I got it the day it was released, so I feel like I've got to say that before I say what I'm going to say. But it's very buggy. There's frame rate issues. I've tried it on 2 different PlayStation 4s now. I mean, they're both slims, and one of them's not in very good nick, so maybe that's part of it. But there are definite frame rate drops, like in the middle of driving. I don't have a 2K account, so I constantly have a 2K logo in the right-hand corner. It's telling me I'm not logged in, which was a problem because in one quest you have a stopwatch in the right-hand corner to tell you when a mission's going to end, and I couldn't see the stopwatch because the 2K logo was over it. Luckily, there's other ways to tell how you're doing, but that was pretty obnoxious, I thought. and in general, it's not the best looking remaster I've ever seen. And it's just, yeah, there's little things like that let it down, but it's atmospheric. It captures my impression of the US just after the war perfectly. The music's fantastic. It's a very basic story, but what it does well. So far I'm having a great time. It's just you've got to sort of look past the technical problems, and I'm sure that there'll be a patch that comes out at some point to fix a lot of that. But I feel like, maybe they could have not just released it on announcing it and instead waited a week or so, or, maybe a month or something to fix these minor issues, because things like having a logo stuck in the corner, like they should have known that would be annoying, and that's not a thing that I imagine would take very long to fix, to be honest. Just getting rid of that pop-up that's constantly there.
That's definitely not a thing you can remove. That's so weird.
I don't think so. Like, it's just there because I'm not logged in and I don't know what I can do to get rid of it. It's just there. I don't think it was there the first time I played it, though. It's the second and the third and the fourth times that I've logged in that it's just stuck in the corner. Maybe somebody can tell me what I'm doing wrong, but it's a bit annoying.
Not signing up for one of those 2K accounts, apparently.
Well, I just don't want to. I mean, I don't play that many 2K games, and I might do just to get rid of it, but I feel like it's annoying that you have to. Like, it feels like it's forcing you. Like, a lot of producers, game producers, have that in, and I don't want to sign up to all of them,
Yeah.
And yeah, I just don't think that they should do that. I mean, having it as an option,
the new
maybe.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember
publisher has to have a service.
But I guess the only time it was a real annoyance was when it was covering up part of the map that I needed to see. And I think, to be honest, the frame rate issues are a bit more jarring to me. Like, when you're driving, it just starts stuttering because it can't keep up. That feels kind of unnecessary on a game that released on the PS3 that's been remastered for the PS4, to be honest. But it's a minor annoyance that's getting in the way of a very enjoyable game. And I think for the asking price, which is not anywhere near a full price of a game, if you've not played Mafia 2 before, you should pick it up because it's a lot of fun. But it's not this open world expansive experience that you might come to expect with games such as GTA nowadays. It's very linear, but it's a good story, well told so far. So
yeah, I thought it was weird. I mean, it is weird how they're going about releasing the Mafia games, that they just quickly put out this Mafia 2 definitive edition or remastered edition, whatever it's called. And then in 2 months or so, we're going to have a basically from the ground up remake of the first one. And then there's also the trilogy that's coming. So I don't know why they had to get this one out a few months before everything else hits. It's puzzling to me that is the direction that they're going with it. And it, from what you've said, it kind of seems like it needed a bit more time in the oven, because you're kind of right. A game that originally released on the PlayStation 3 probably shouldn't have major frame rate issues on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I feel like the better approach would have been getting the first one out, the whole rebuild, complete remake of the first game thing, and then putting out the definitive editions of 2 and 3. Bank off the high of the fact people are really enjoying the first game. Hey, you like that first one? Here's some remasters of these other 2. I don't know, build the momentum. But this, on the other hand, just throwing it out there more or less.
yeah.
Just don't forget to log into the 2K account, otherwise we'll cover up half your game.
Yep.
Having said that, I could be wrong, but I'm just having a quick look at which characters are in the first game, and it feels like they are the first game is a little bit separate from the other 2, so it might make sense to release that later, because it's not the story of the characters in 2 before 2. So that might make more sense to release that one later. I don't know. Without saying too much as spoilers, there is a character in 2 that's in 3, so that makes a lot of sense that they're coming out at the same time. But
yeah, I think on Mafia 2 and 3, I know that the 3 takes place in the 60s, right? But aren't they generally kind of more contemporary America? Whereas I think the first Mafia is literally kind of like Al Capone, Godfather kind of era. But I might be confusing it with another game. But I think there's a huge time discrepancy between the first game and the second and the third game, which are kind of like modern Americana.
I've played
Yeah.
all of them. Mafia 1 takes place through the 20s, and I believe up into the early 30s, whereas Mafia
Right,
2 goes
right.
throughout the 40s and 50s.
So I guess
Yeah.
there's a tighter connection between 2 and 3 on like a chronological timeline, isn't there? So
Yeah,
I guess...
there's also a big connection in the second one, but it's just for a mission that I won't talk about, so...
All right, let's go ahead and move on to myself. This past week, I have been playing Bloodstained Ritual of the Night because it has been updated on the Switch to high heaven, and so I figured it was about time to give it a shot. If you guys have been paying attention at all, the Switch version has been the one that needed the most work for the longest, and it took a lot of patches to get it to where it is right now. And booting it up, if you were to look at Bloodstained without knowing much about it, it honestly looks like it was created by some small unknown indie developer rather than one of the most respected game developers in the world. I do not think ArtPlay fully grasped the capabilities of the Unreal Engine by the time they got the game released, especially on the Switch. It's not ugly, but it's also not really appealing. I get that Gothic castles, like, they're not supposed to be super colorful, but the mood just isn't here. It's just... there's something missing from those old Castlevania games in this one, in terms of the mood and the setting to really get you into the place that it just doesn't have. And also some of these character models look really old. Johannes in particular looked like he fell out of an Xbox game, like an original Xbox game. The gameplay is so fucking good. It really is. With all the updates they've done to Switch, there are no input delays. There's no frame rate issues that I've run into. The combat is just solid all around. It's slower and methodical than most action games, which is what I really like, because I love the fact that I walk into a room and here's just this giant enemy with a axe on a chain and I have to figure out how to kill it before it kills me, and which of my magic powers or my shards abilities are going to be most useful against it. And I love the gameplay because I love the Castlevania series. And so this just captures it perfectly. And I'm only about 4 hours into it. I wanted to get more, but my nephew was like, no, let's play Apex Legends for 9 hours yesterday. So that was a lot of time. But it's really good. The enemy design in this game, some of it is very, very creative. Some of it's dumb, like the Ghost, or at least the early Ghost. It doesn't really feel like it's evolved all that much from Castlevania, not saying that it necessarily has to, but there are a lot of 25-year-old game designs elements here. And one of my favorites happens early in the game, of when you're like walking through the castle and you run into this other character, and then out of nowhere, one of your associates comes running into the room to say his lines of dialogue and then goes running out of the room.
Yeah. I know the bit you mean as well. Yeah, I know the exact moment.
That is some solid storytelling right there. So yeah, I like the old school approach to the gameplay, but there's a lot of elements in here that should be modernized. And that's one of them, because that just made me laugh. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be laughing at this game that's, going for serious. I mean, there's a fountain of blood, so clearly they're trying to be a bit more goth about it than maybe for lighthearted laughter that they end up producing.
I feel like a lot of the dialogue delivery, because I played that game and had a lot of fun with it. It reminds me of how Telemundo does drama. Someone will just open a door and say a line, then just rush away, and it was just that's how we're doing line delivery today, and it made me happy.
I think Bloodstone's great. I really wish I could get back to it, but I've just kind of been too busy with other games at the moment. But I really get a kick out of it. It definitely scratches the itch for the those kind of latter day Castlevania titles. I do think it has kind of a very what you say about being serious, I do think there's clearly kind of an underlying sense of humor with some of the stuff, like the fact that you have to literally visit like the scissor hands guy to get your hair cut. Do you know what I mean? And you're taking books of haircuts, and then he can say, okay. And there's also items you can pick up that are literally, isn't there like a pair of boots that basically squeak whilst you run? and there's a voice changer mask that makes you sound like you've been inhaling helium, and all the dialogue's just delivered like you've been inhaling helium. So there's definitely kind of like a ridiculous tongue-in-cheek sense of humor in there, but at the same time, as you say, it's kind of got a bit of a bleak end of days storyline. But I think Japan has always been very big on that, like blending the apocalypse with Monty Python. Like the anime has always been like that for a long time, and I guess the same thing applies here. But I do think Bloodstained's a great game. I hope to get back to it and finish it soon. I think I'm about halfway through, but it's got some very funny scenes and some interesting stuff that you only get in kind of these gothic Japanese adventures, like where you visit, a giant castle that's all brickwork and gargoyles and ravens and then they've got like a fucking train just like running through the middle of the castle. Like, okay.
I will just end with this. I can tell that Igarashi, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he really has a soft spot for Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. And if you haven't played that game and you still own a Nintendo DS or 3DS, I suggest tracking it down. Because if Symphony of the Night is the best game in the series and Aria of Sorrow is the second best, Order of Ecclesia is a strong contender for third. It is outstanding and easily the best one they released on the DS. All right, moving on. Occams, why don't you take us through The Chopping Mall?
Well, I watched a movie. Shocking. The Chopping Mall. Originally released as Killbots, Chopping Mall is a much better name. It is a 1986 American science fiction comedy horror. Just kind of throwing them all in there, aren't we? It's a story of these kids. They work at a mall. This mall has gotten some fancy new security droids to protect the mall. 86, by the way, this is like height of the mall culture scene. And there's a thunderstorm and there's a strike of lightning hits the building, and the security bots are stored on this top floor, and it like fries the wiring. So of course it makes these security bots want to kill. And then so these kids who are staying, they're four couples. They work at the mall, but they're gonna stay behind after the mall closes. They're gonna party, drink beer, eat pizza, fool around. Typical 80s teenage couple stuff. And then so it's now these kids versus the killbots in the Chopping Mall. This was a really fun, stupid movie. It is everything I really like in these 80s kind of horror. There's kind of silly horror movies. It's in it. You've got great 80s boobs. You've got pointless, silly music. You've got really great scenes of gore and really bad scenes of gore. And it's just really lighthearted, even though, people die, but they're not super. There's like, oh, that's just ketchup on the floor, and you can see the guy breathing. It's great. I cannot recommend this movie enough. It's also, what is it? Like, it's 76 minutes long.
Oh my God.
To be fair, the original release was 96 minutes, but, it got cut down because they just cut it down. So fun fact, they actually filmed in this mall. They filmed at night. They made a deal with the mall owners and were able to film at night. This was the same mall where they filmed the mall scenes. How many times am I saying mall in this sentence? For Commando. So in the daytime, mall scenes of Commando, and then at night they filmed Chopping Mall. The Chopping Mall title, by the way, was suggested by a janitor, which I love because he was very much on the point, much better than Killbots. It was really, really, really stupid and fun. The robots, they look like a first draft for Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
Nope. Those heads, that is Alpha 5 from the Power Rangers.
That is very true. That is a very early first draft, maybe, without the finesse. But yeah, and they have the Battlestar Galactica like line that just goes back and forth for no reason. They're so stupid, and they're not scary at all. The fact that anyone dies to these things is amazing. The fact that they were able to sneak up on people at times is also shocking. These things were probably louder than a lawnmower when they were being operated. It's so great. It's dumb. It's fun. They have a sporting goods store in this mall that is full of guns, which I love because that's probably like a legit thing for the 80s. It's a great, if you like mall culture or want to see how early malls look, because I spent a lot of time in this movie just looking around the background at the store since it was a real mall.
Yeah.
and like seeing like, oh, I remember that, remember this, remember that. It was just a lot of fun. Roger Corman's wife, I believe, produced it, and so it kind of has that Roger Corman feel where do everything you can with as little as possible, and they do, and it works, and it's wonderful. It's a fun, stupid movie. It is the prototypical, to me at least, prototypical like 80s kind of horror comedy, whatever. It's so everything boiled down to its essence. It's a really fun movie. It's a cult classic, and I can see why. So highly recommend Chopping Mall. I believe it's on Amazon Prime is where I watched it, though it's not particularly hard to find in other places too. And a copy won't run you much on eBay if you're so inclined.
I'm in. I'll watch it. It's only 76 minutes long.
It is like like an episode of Law and Order +5. I mean, it's nothing, man. It's so easy to watch. And like I said, it's very fun.
There's a great moment in it where and I'm not going to give like the moment away, but basically the money shot of the movie, they're so proud of that they just show it again later in the film.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is kind of typical of a lot of these like 80s horror movies where they like, you can see like the 15 seconds they put all the budget into, like all the effects budget, and so they're gonna milk that shit for all it's worth, and it's quite wonderful.
Now and Dick Miller shows up, who's like a genre veteran, and Mary Warrenov's in it, who's also like in all of these films. There's an early role for like Barbara Crampton. And it's also it falls into that wonderful like 85 to 88 time period where robots were such a fucking thing in movies. Like they were like you mentioned Short Circuit, but infamously, like I was talking to Occam's about this the other day. There was like Rocky IV, where for no reason they just gave Paulie a robot wife, didn't they? That he was apparently smart enough to reprogram so it had a sexy voice. It's like how the guy can't even fucking like. Can't even run a pet shop. How's he reprogrammed this robot? Yeah. But there was just that period where it was like robot sidekicks and Hoops and Yo-Yo, of course. And but yeah, Holmes and Yo-Yo. But this is, and also I do like the idea that these robots the robots in Chopping Mall, the Killbots, their main defense is basically a laser beam that's like powerful enough to blow up a shop. What were they expecting to happen in this mall?
Yeah,
so these security guards.
Chris brings up a really good point. Like, so the beginning of the movie, it's this I guess the company that made these Killbots is giving a demonstration / presentation to some people at the mall, and there's this really great scene. I don't know who both of these people I recognize immediately. And if you've seen any movie from like 85 to probably 2000, you recognize the fella as like every like snobby art critic or like snobbish asshole in a movie, he's played it. And they have this like a weird line about like a real racist thing about keeping the Orientals out, I think. I'm not remember that correctly exactly, but it is something I went, that's interesting. But they did this little video demonstration where they show like the Killbots are like, this guy like breaks into a jewelry counter, grabs some jewelry, he's running off, and the Killbots are like, stop, we're gonna drop the jewelry, the police have been called, and they use a taser, and it's like the kind that shoots out with the darts and stuff, and the guy gets tased, though it looks kind of intense, and the guy who's running the presentation, someone asked him like, well, how will these things not kill people? How he's like, first off, they recognize you have badges. Everyone at the mall has a badge, which, okay, the guy at like Shake Shack has a badge. Okay. But you show them the badge and they know you're good. If you don't have a badge, they can tase you, but they're programmed not to kill. I'm like, okay, well, that's the first problem right there. That never works out the way you want it to. But it's so much fun. And then my favorite like conceit in this film is that when the mall closes at night, from close till dawn is when these robots are doing their thing. There are these giant steel doors that close in front of the mall that look like every bulkhead in a science fiction movie ever, where they like come from the left and the right and they go like closing, where it's like the vacuum seal. And it's so out of place. It's, Fort Knox didn't have that kind of security, but goddamn if the mall didn't.
I love the idea that these robots, first of all, Killbots, are designed not to kill anyone, yet they are fully equipped to do just that.
There's the first kill in the movie, and I'm truly not spoiling anything, is one of the Killbots using like, it looks like a little grabber that like the people who are too fat to wash their bodies have to use with the cloth on the end of it, like tears the dude's throat out. And it's like, why did you make it that strong? What is it doing? Oh, and like Chris said, man, the laser, which it can shoot just freely. There's no like power up time. There's no nothing. Just fuck it. Let's just G.I. Joe this shit up and just start firing everywhere. Yeah, it is impressive that these were military grade murdering robots that for some reason are mall security.
Occams, this is America. I'm surprised we don't have that in real life.
I think in an alternate world we do.
We will
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah, we're working on it right now. It's a wonderful film. It's definitely deserved its cult status, and it's worth a watch.
All right, and I also see here that you have been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. How far are you into that?
I am on chapter 15 currently, and we've talked about it, and it's been talked about quite a bit. So I won't speak on it for a long time, but I just wanted to say that as someone who was at Babbage's the day this came out with his friends picking it up, the original game, not the remake. Although if there's still a Babbage's, please let me know where that is. I'd love to go. And who's playing this? I'm walking around Midgar, and I'm looking at the little the signs for the different shops, and not just like the big things, the big the story plot areas you have to go, but like the cafes, the tea shops, even how they do the items in the weapon shops.
Yeah,
it feels like such a lived-in world, and it feels like a dream realized for that kid all those years ago who was playing this and wondered what would this game look like on technology 20 years from now, or however long it's been. And it's a really beautiful thing, and it really makes my heart swell as a gamer to kind of be able to experience it. And it makes me very excited for what they do next with it. So it's just been a wonderful experience, and that's all I got to say about that.
You're about to come across the best portions of the game in terms of using the combat engine, in my opinion. So you have a lot to look forward to.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have been I found a newfound love for Tifa, playing as her, just doing her
so good.
She is so fucking good, and just her combos are insane, and it's so much fun. I also I have Barrett equipped with he either has all the melee weapons. I love his guns, but I just love the idea of him running around just brute forcing everything, just hammer fisting everything he sees. It just seems like a very Barrett thing to do. I still wish he was voiced by Shaq, but that's okay. But yeah, it's been really fun, and my only complaint so far is that I'll have to wait an indeterminate length of time to play the next part, whatever it's going to be. So
yeah, knock on wood, it comes out on PlayStation 5.
Jesus, if it doesn't, man, well, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I'll knock on wood.
This is Podtoid.
All right, that is it for games, which means it is time for the news.
This is the news.
And unlike last week, there wasn't really much to talk about coming out of the past 7 days. But there was one giant story that I guess is pretty much the only thing people were talking about on Twitter. After many, many months of hashtags and annoying the fuck out of everyone online, HBO announced that it will broadcast the Snyder Cut of the Justice League in May 2021. Apparently, the cut needs about $20 million worth of special effects and editing before it is fully 100% complete. If you don't know what the Snyder Cut is, you must have just woken up from a coma or have never been on the internet. It's unclear exactly how much this differs from the version of the Justice League that we got in theaters. But we do know that the original cut of the Justice League, directed by Zack Snyder, was roughly 4 hours long. It had Uxas, I can't pronounce this guy's name, young Darkseid, as the wolf, as the villain instead of Steppenwolf. It also had a battle between Ares and Darkseid, and I cannot stress this enough, was 4 hours long. Apparently, Snyder cut down his film to 2 hours, which nobody at Warner Brothers liked. Then he left the project following a family tragedy, at which point Joss Whedon stepped in and did a terrible job of fixing it. This is something that people have been begging for years, and it always seemed like one of those things that was just never going to happen, like, the general public being able to see the movie the day the clown cried. But here we are. It's coming, and I think we've all learned a valuable lesson.
If things don't go your way, just keep complaining until your dreams come true.
Occams, what went through your head when you saw this story this week?
I rolled my eyes so hard they fell down my throat, went through my stomach, and made their way down into my ball sack, where they kind of twirled around like marbles with my nuts until they came all the way back up and fit back in my skull.
Yeah, I don't think I had that type of reaction to it, but
honestly, I just would start thinking about if your testicles and your eyes switch places, and I just kind of went with it. No, it's I don't know if I feel like the people who were really excited about this film, there's no way it can fail for them. That this
Correct.
This is their end all be all everything. It is immune to criticism for them, which bums me out. I think the idea of a comic book movie clocking in around the same time that Seven Samurai is fucked up. That there's no reason for this to be almost 4 hours long, and that I wouldn't sit through it. And I like the Justice League more than I like the Avengers. I like the DC characters more than I like the Marvel characters. I think they're more interesting. I think they've got a better history, a better story to tell. But this is just tedious as shit. And DC, when they were starting all this, they backed the wrong horse with Zack Snyder. That he is a really interesting visual guy, and he's a shit director and a bad storyteller. When they let him do what he wanted, he made Sucker Punch. That's all you really need to know, folks. If you haven't watched Sucker Punch, give it a shot. It is a steaming pile of shit, and it is definitely what a grown man thinks women, like female empowerment, looks like. That's real fucking unfortunate.
One thing I will say in favor of Sucker Punch is that it's under 2 hours long.
That, blessedly. And he also has a real hard on for like terrible fucking covers of decent songs. And I know that getting a cover versus what you pay for the licensing the original, it's yada yada yada. But like this feels like, no, this is like the tone of this one really fit. No, it's fucking garbage. I hope it's what these people want. I don't think it will be in the grand scheme. I don't think it's going to suddenly redeem the DC versus Marvel and just how disparate those two companies in terms of their cinematic universes are. I'm really hopeful going forward that the DC cinematic universe can really pick up the pace a little bit, put out interesting films about their characters. But this, I think instead of quieting the Twitter hashtag movement thing, I think it's just going to make it that much louder, because now these people can get what they want if they complain, just like your little your sound clips said. But I don't think it's. I've read about what it adds in. I think read on a website that they had talking about what's going to be added in. I think it'll flesh it out more, but it's still just a bloated fucking mess, and it's just visually just a dreary, uninteresting film to me. That's not going to change just because you add more in. So yeah, I'm not particularly excited, but it'll be what it'll be. But I'm disappointed that it will be immune to criticism from those people. I feel like if you really love this, you can take an objective look at it and go, okay, here's what works, here's what isn't. It's very much an us versus them thing, Marvel versus DC. And I feel like they both have their strengths and weaknesses. It's just right now that Marvel is doing a better job of telling their stories, and DC really needs to examine like what they're doing wrong. Oh.
So I'm willing to give it a shot. I don't want to write off a film before I see it, even though I have ample reason to do so. Zack Snyder hasn't made a good movie in 15 years, maybe. I don't know. 300, I don't think would stand up to scrutiny today. So let's just go with Dawn of the Dead, which I still enjoy, his remake of it that he didn't write. I didn't enjoy Watchmen. I didn't think that he did a... well, I mean, he didn't write that one, but the writer and him as the director, I don't think they really captured what the comic or graphic novel was going for. Certainly didn't have any of its wit and humor, which is a continuing trend in his movies that just generally seem to be without joy or humor or anything other than grim.
That was my complaint about Justice League, was it was joyless. And I don't need it to be funny. I don't need it to be like a slapstick or anything. But these are not hopeless sad characters. You know, they're not like the grimdark. You hear that word a lot.
Yeah.
And that movie just felt so tonally like one note, and just it sucked the life out of my excitement for these characters. Superman's a fucking awesome character. He can be really interesting. Same Batman, fucking insanely interesting character, and they made him so fucking boring. When I'm like, hey, you know, the Michael Keaton Batman is kind of more compelling, and I mean Michael Keaton Batman, not the Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne, because God knows those are two very different interpretations.
Yes,
but you know, it's like ugh.
Well, isn't like, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't one of the selling points of the Snyder Cut that it's actually darker? Isn't that one of the big things about it that people want it?
Yes,
for?
because Joss Whedon did go through and add, or attempted to add, lighthearted moments. I think there's a moment towards the end of the Justice League where like, I think Aquaman like saves a car or lifts a car, and then Superman flies by carrying an entire building.
You know,
I seem to remember that, but also I watched it on an airplane, so it was a tiny airplane screen.
There's a fucking reason that like Warner Brothers own like the DC universe and Mortal Kombat. Like, and that's like kind of a half joke, but it's not. It's like, it's this obsession with this kind of like, everyone's a ninja, everyone's got no pupils in their eyes, everyone's wearing like heavy armor, it's raining all the time. Like, it's this strange kind of just throw pro wrestling in there, and you'd have the unholy trinity, as it were. But yeah, I think this cut's supposed to kind of be a bit grimmer and probably takes out some of these light-hearted moments. I'm not being fucking wanker movie guy here, which is like something that they'll probably write on my headstone. But I'm just not interested in this Snyder Cut because I'm not interested in those DC films. I just don't think they're very good, and I don't want to see a longer version of any of them because I don't think they're very good.
So for context, there's talk that it'll be 6 episodes, not just
I'd
like
heard that. I
giant
heard
thing.
they were considering making it like a mini series.
Wouldn't shock me if they pull that route, honestly, because I can't imagine this is gonna be a 4-hour fucking movie. I can't imagine that.
Well, like if
what's
they throw
the point?
It on, if they throw it on Netflix or something like that,
HBO
like because they
Plus
did
or
like they did with The Irishman. So the idea is that people can watch it at their own pace. They can stop it at the 2-hour point and go to the toilet, or. But there's probably too much money to be made by putting it out theatrically whenever they're able to put it out theatrically. Who fucking knows when cinemas are going to open again?
Well, it's not going out theatrically. It's going on to HBO Max, from what I understand.
Oh, they've said have they?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. It might go theatrically overseas. I don't know if the HBO Max is just for the U.S. or it's for worldwide, but it might end up on different streaming services for overseas. But the fact that it's going to go onto a streaming service versus into theaters just makes me wonder why bother cutting it into anything other than one solid movie, because people are going to binge it anyway. Like, what? Do you really need to have people sit through 12 seconds of credits before they can skip to the next episode? I don't see a point.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, I get the point of having it. In some ways, I can see it being episodic just for the people who wanted that bite-sized chunk, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, for people, I think that the folks who are like just clamoring with the hashtag and all trying to get this made, they're gonna take an afternoon. They're probably gonna watch like the first the Joss Whedon release, and then watch this goddamn thing, and that's like 9 hours of film. I mean, you get into Lord of the Rings territory with that.
Well, no, first they're going to watch Man of Steel. Then they're going to watch Batman vs. Superman. Then they're going to watch the original Justice League cut, and then they're going to watch the Snyder Cut.
Here's the ultimate thing, though. Who cares? Like, they could have just done fucking nothing, and the majority of people would have not batted an eye. And they're doing this now. And that movie will always still be shit. And even if this is slightly better, great, awesome. But at the end of the day, who cares? Like, they did a thing, and they're doing something, I guess, for fans. I guess, I don't know. We're entering this weird moment in movie history now where it does seem like fans can absolutely get what they want. This includes Sonic. We saw what happened there, and that was for the good. And hey, maybe this will be slightly better. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, but I think when you say who cares, it's like people want there to be great Batman movies. I don't think there's very few people who don't want great Batman movies to happen again.
I don't
I'd
mean
love
like
another.
who cares as in the DC stuff, as in who cares that they're making another cut of this terrible movie. I mean who cares as in let's move on to the new stuff, honestly.
Okay.
As someone who respects writers and directors, I always appreciate the fact that they bring out a director's cut when the original director was either removed or had to leave a project. Superman 2 is a good example of this. Blade Runner is a good example of this. Dawn of the Dead is a good example of this. I remember having that DVD collection that had the theatrical release, director's cut, the European release, and I think one other release as well. But for me, what I'm looking at is Batman versus Superman is like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours of pure. What's the opposite of enjoyment? It is a joyless movie. I did not enjoy that movie one bit. I did not find it entertaining. I do not think it is good. That movie came out in March of 2016. This movie, Zack Snyder's cut, started shooting in April of 2016, which means the script was already written, the shots were already planned, they already knew exactly which direction they were going to go in, and there was zero time for this production team, these writers and director, to look at the reaction to Batman versus Superman and kind of correct course. So I don't anticipate this to be any better or worse than Batman versus Superman. I just anticipate it to be longer than it.
Here's the thing about it, though, and I'll reiterate: either it's slightly better, and that's a thing, or it's still terrible and nothing changes.
Yep. I mean, it's the same thing with the Donner cut of Superman 2. It could have been just as bad as the original, although the original wasn't as bad as, say, the original Justice League is, or it could be better. And that one ended up better. This one, it could go either way. All I know is that it will be longer, much longer.
That should be the tagline. Now it's longer.
More like the Snyder not anything got cut. Am I right?
Oh shit. Snap and Z formation. All right. Mm-hmm. One of the things that bums me out about this movie is that it doesn't give, I think, the gravity to Darkseid, because I like Darkseid. I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I want to say he actually predates Thanos, because they're both occupy the same like space as a cosmic villain in their respective universes, and he's a cool villain. He's got some cool shit going on, and no one knows anything about him. And they gave so much time in the Marvel movies to develop Thanos, and he felt there. You understood why he was doing what he was doing. And a lot of that is to, how he was written. He was portrayed. Josh Brolin did a fantastic fucking job acting up a 9-foot tall, omnipotent California raisin, killing everybody he saw. And I wish that Darkseid would get that same kind of TLC, because he's a cool villain. I've read a lot of his stuff, and he's an interesting fella. I just hope going forward for both Marvel and DC, Marvel, it's their game to lose, but I hope DC can kind of see what's working for Marvel, look at their characters, and make something work for them beyond the kind of the stigma they have now with this grim dark thing, because they got a lot of fun stories to tell. They got a ton of fun stories to tell. So I'm hopeful for the future. We'll see.
I can't tell if it's like a mixture of me just like being stupid, but wasn't like the Justice League bad guy Steppenwolf or whatever?
Yes.
I can't. Jenny, okay, good.
I did say that earlier in the show.
All right, cool. I can't remember anything about the acting, a single line, what he looked like. It's just the most forgettable thing. So I don't know how you're going to expand on that across 4 hours, but good luck.
I will say, Occam's, to your question, Darkseid. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Seed?
I say Darkseid. I've heard Darkseid.
Apparently, even though it's clearly written Seed, apparently it is Side.
Okay.
Even though it's clearly written Seed.
He debuted before Thanos in an issue of Jimmy Olsen.
That sounds about right.
On a television screen.
Humble beginnings, for sure.
And I think one thing that this conversation has made clear to us is that no one is more excited for this cut than Charlotte, who has just been stricken with silence in her anticipation of it coming.
My opinion is Watchmen was okay. Superheroes, basically.
I will say that Thor Ragnarok is better than anything the DC cinematic universe has done yet. So that's my hot take.
I only care if there's hot men in things. Like
Amen to that.
Aquaman. The guy in that is hot. Thor is hot. That's about my opinion. Hot.
So you like kind of the big kind of long hair, bead in the hair, beardy types.
Yeah, I mean, as a fantasy dude, sure. Have to put as a fantasy dude, otherwise my boyfriend will get very upset 'cause he does not fit that description whatsoever.
See, and I liked short hair Thor better. I thought he was a lot sexier than long hair Thor.
And yeah, he had one eye.
Jason Momoa was the perfect person to play Aquaman because he definitely looks like he smells like he lives in the sea.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Dude, he looks like he's got a funk, but it works, and I hate him for that.
I just like killbots.
I get it.
This is Podtoid.
All right. Before we go, we're just about out of time. Occams, do we have a community shout out this week?
Yeah, we got a few. Had a rad party god celebrated a birthday. Paris Mio. I've been saying Paris Mio forever for that
That's
name.
what I've been saying.
Celebrated a birthday. Want to give a shout out. The forums are they're doing selective invites right now. And I think they're going to go live relatively soon. Don't quote me on that, but I'm hearing through the grapevine that at least within the next amount of time they should be open. So the forums, that's something to definitely keep an eye out for. And then there was a hashtag that had some traction. It was a 90s Toid. It was music, people posting pictures, people just posting memories. I myself took part in that as well. And that was really fun to see because we got a lot of 90s babies around here. And that was really fun to kind of walk down memory lane, our shared experiences. So those are the community shout outs this week.
So next week I am helping out at two. One's a speed running marathon, one's technically a speed running marathon, but not. It's a bingo-thon. So it's sort of trying to complete a game as fast as you can, but with a bingo board to achieve objectives. So those two events called ESA Corona Relief and Bingo-thon are going on online next week, and I'm doing stuff at both, social media stuff, donation reading stuff. Yeah, and they're both raising money for causes that are adjacent to Corona causes. So ESA is raising money for Save the Children, and Bingo-thon is raising money for Fred Hutch, which is doing research into the coronavirus. So please tune in and donate if you're able. They're both raising money for very good causes.
That is it for this episode of Podtoid. Just to let you know, we will not be having a new episode next week, so you will hear from us 2 weeks from now. On behalf of Charlotte, Chris, Occams, Dan, and myself, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or the Destructoid YouTube channel.